one. Mother and father and daughter and son. We gonna learn and plus have fun. Yes indeed, the time has come. Reach out to your neighbor, do something nice, return the favor. It's all good, we all get along. Clap your hands and sing along to the song. Young people, you ain't gotta do wrong. We can all do right, come on.
Just to make you think ahead, battle mind to mind, make me not be left behind. I put us all together, teach you face to the chest, where you're learning pieces movements, out of your stress. Chess.
The bishops are next to both the king and the queen, and protect them by moving diagonally any number of squares, with one bishop capturing on black and the other on white. For the person being bullied, the bishops are religious organizations and groups which can help cut across boundaries that others can't. This is their story.
What a great opportunity to talk about the various assets that children need to both get over the concerns that come to them with bullying situations, where bullies are coming at them and they need to defend themselves, but on the other hand, how to learn if one has started being a bully themselves, how to learn to overcome that and to kind of reestablish their own personal humanity. My name is Pastor John Perling. I'm pastor here at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in the Byram neighborhood of Greenwich. We're right here on Delavan Avenue with a number of neighborhoods all around us, but right here in the center of it all, there's about 3,000 households that call this neighborhood home. And we see kids from all over, especially from New Lebanon Avenue School and from Hamilton Avenue School and from Glenville over across the other side of the street. And we see how the kids interact both with each other and then also with the adults around them. And there's a way that we can keep encouraging them to live life as fully human beings, to grab hold of their calling to be an asset to the community back. In my role here as pastor, there's a number of ways that we try to encourage the kids who take part in our ministry here. And in the context of our topic today, in connection with how the game of chess can be a real asset to them in learning about life, as well as learning a sport and a game that teaches them critical thinking and their own self-development. This is a great opportunity also to talk about how we all fit together as members of one neighborhood and one community. So, as a church, we fit on the chessboard alongside the other pieces as a bishop. Now, if we still consider that we're talking about that one child that we're there to support as the king, and we talk about how their family is the queen around them, then the next step down the line is going to be that bishop. Now, that child is there who can move a little bit here and there. They've got some freedom to go, but really, they're in our hands. They're being looked after by us. There's not a whole lot that they can oftentimes do to defend themselves, although there's a few things that we can help them with. We're there to really be a safe place where they can find their own voice, where they can find their own way of working out in the world. And while their family is number one as far as being right there around them, their family is really number one to be protecting them. The bishop, the churches in our community and our faith communities form a next layer to be a support to those families as well as to that individual child. And there's a number of ways that we seek to do that. Lots of folks have done any number of studies about what it takes to help a child grow up in a healthy way. Everything from every child needs a village, to every child needs a variety of assets around them, lots of different ways of thinking about that. But if we're all on the same page to some extent of keeping our eyes open for those kids that need our help, and for those kids who may need it but not know they need it, we all have assets to give them. There's a number of things that kids need. They need to know that adults around them also have their best interests at heart. Lots of neighborhoods have gone through changes. If you talk to some of the old timers in my neighborhood here in Byram, they will tell you all the stories about how they never were able to get away with anything. If they were messing around down the street outside of their front yard, there was always a neighbor there. Or there was always even another family member there, an uncle or an aunt or other cousins that were older that were keeping an eye on them, to say nothing of folks beyond that. But I've also heard stories about how the pastors would do the same thing. How when they were supposed to be in class, or when they were supposed to be in confirmation class, or when they were supposed to be at church, sometimes they would stop the whole business and head on down to Byram Shore and grab those kids by the hand and say, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be. But that was all to the good. That was all to let folks know that we were all in this together, and that we were all on the same page, that we were all pulling ourselves together to be a neighborhood. It's kind of one of those things that keeps being a call to all of us. When it comes to today's situation, we find that a lot more families are spread out. They're not necessarily living in the same neighborhoods anymore. You don't have multiple generations right here in the same place. And so that queen part of a family is sometimes getting a little bit more disconnected themselves. And that's another reason that faith communities can be another help, especially to single moms or to single parents in general, to those who are away from family here in our neighborhood. Maybe they've even immigrated from another country and they're trying to bring the rest of their family over, but for the time being, they're on their own, trying to work that through. This congregation right here was started by those same folks that came from Eastern Europe and had to work hard to bring their families to experience the American dream. Now, the new Americans are coming from any number of places around the world. And so faith communities have worked to help people settle, to find jobs, to find apartments to live in, to work through their citizenship questions, as well as to be a safe place where they can express not only their faith, but their own humanity in a way that gives them all of the assets they need to grow up strong. When it comes to the kids, if they don't have uncles and aunts close by, if they don't have cousins around them that are close by, the other folks that are gathered around here really become substitute grandmas, substitute aunts and uncles, substitute cousins and best friends, because they've been disconnected from all those other networks. As a pastor, sometimes I have to go far away from where I grew up. In fact, personally, I grew up in Los Angeles, California, and so I'm all the way across the country from my mom and dad and from my brothers and sisters. And so I know what it means to be dislocated, as do my kids. But our congregation, again, has become an extended family for all of us and for all of them, as we get together several times during the week to share fellowship together around meals and to share the word of the Lord together as we find out what wisdom looks like, what truth looks like, and how to exercise love in our context, in our neighborhood, right here, in these walls. And so the game of chess gives us another avenue to talk about all of those things that kids should be looking out for, and the kinds of things that they can pull on for support. When it comes to that second layer around outside of family, churches can play that role. Bishops move diagonally across the board. They move on one color. You can't have a black bishop becoming a white bishop. You can't have a white bishop becoming a black bishop. because they move right along that seam. And so they cut across some of the other boundaries that other folks find themselves in, and yet they stay true to themselves. So in our congregation, we have a confession of faith. We believe in the triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the power of God to bring us to our full humanity. To know that we can be freed for service and love because of what the Lord has done. And so being at peace with ourselves and being at peace with our neighbors because of what God has shared with us already gives us the strength to be peacemakers in our neighborhoods as well. So we cut across those boundaries and at the same time stay true to that message and that work of forgiveness so that we can be reconcilers when people go at each other. And so that brings us right down to what happens between kids and what happens when the larger start to prey on the younger. I had an episode early on in my ministry, in another place, another city, where I was running an after-school program, and it was our first year doing it. We'd gone through all the risk management training, we'd gone through all the procedures we thought we needed to do, and we had policies in place, and yet there was a day when it broke down once, and we saw the evidence of bullying happen when one of our kids was found in a garbage can upside down. And it was absolutely the most heart-wrenching experience that I've had in those kind of after-school program experiences. And we had a serious talk all the way through, gathered everybody together, and made sure that everybody knew that this kind of behavior was absolutely unacceptable. We also found out what family was involved on both sides of that, and we got them to sit down together. We chatted through and talked through very seriously what it means to prey on other people, especially within the confines of a community of faith. There are any number of stories about when churches have failed to be safe places. And that's not only a problem for a denomination or for an individual church, it's a problem that brings shame on the word of the Lord. And that's nothing that we ever want to be a part of. And so when we gather children together, we make sure that we have not only a bishop in place, but also all of the other adult volunteers and all the other facilitators of the community of faith to be watching out for those kids. And when it comes time for one of those older ones to make sure that they are taken aside to be spoken with about how they're treating the younger ones, we have a way of doing that. And it's a very intentional way. It's one that I taught to my kids as well, and that's forgiveness. It's confession and it's forgiveness. And what we do when we've done something wrong to each other, we don't just say, well, that's okay. Or we don't just say, well, forget about it. We have children come together and we say, I'm sorry. And we bring that sin, that brokenness, that wrongness, that bullying, we bring it right to the place where it can actually be dealt with, and that's the cross of Jesus Christ. Because that's the one place where it can be lifted right off of their heart and off of their mind, and they can be transformed. The word of forgiveness that comes then, somebody has truly confessed their sin. The word of forgiveness that even comes from the child that's been bullied, that's been hurt, provides the healing word that suddenly brings these two into a whole new place, not just as friends, but as fellow children of God. And when that happens, there is all of that peace that can be reestablished right between them, right then and right there. And I've seen grandparents and I've seen parents watch that happen and have tears running down their faces as they realize that a real change can happen. Now there's ways that others can come alongside all of that. And you're going to hear about a number of others who are working towards the good for our kids. But one of the sets of assets that the bishops can bring to the table and the faith communities can bring to the table is to extend that role of family beyond even the household and to see that there is a larger community around those families that they can find as a place of peace, a place of rest, a place where they can find prayer support and actually engage in some real help. Babysitters, tutors, coaches, and friends. Any number of places where they can know that here are folks who have dedicated themselves to love. They've dedicated themselves to truth, and they've dedicated themselves to peace. And with that kind of starting point, we can have a whole range of conversations that find the honesty of being able to say, look, this is okay and this is not. This is positive and this is not. This is bringing about the joy of our neighborhood and the glory of God, and this is not. And when they can learn how to recognize sin, when they can learn how to recognize what's right and wrong, and when they can learn to recognize where to put the bad, and to know that the good can flow again, that they're not lost, that they can be recovered, that they in fact have already been redeemed, then that's a gift that we would love every child to have. We get together on Sunday morning to express that in very unique, very definitive ways. In fact, this coming Sunday, we'll be bringing in 3 more of our kids into First Communion. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be bringing more of our kids into their confirmation. So that as they unpack the joy of the Lord and as they unpack the teaching of God, that they can apply it for themselves and claim their own place as a person of peace in this neighborhood and in this faith community. It's a contagious thing. And as these kids learn about the other pieces that come into place on the chessboard, they'll know that that bishop is also an asset for them. And if they walk in these doors or if they join us out on the street to take care of business in some good ways, in some positive ways, that they'll be welcomed to be a part of what greater things that they are being called to. So that maybe they'll even be able to move beyond that one square when it comes time. God's peace to you.
It was awesome. Yes.
The Bishop's a pretty interesting piece. A lot of people like to use it. I'm one of those people. It can move diagonally as far as it wants, and it's one of those pieces that you can risk easily, but you use it to take very big pieces and surprise people. No one really notices it if it's in the corner. Yeah, that's pretty much about it for the Bishop, though. It's a pretty good piece, though, but it's simple. The pieces that are next to the Knights are the Bishops. These guys are pretty useful, and they're a lot easier to take out than the Rooks. They move diagonally, and they go right next to the Knights, like I already said.
Bishop moves diagonally. So that means he goes like this, and he cannot change colors. So if he is on black, he has to remain on black throughout the whole game. He can't do this and end up on white. And that's one of the things that's really important to teach the kids, because they don't always understand lines. But diagonal is the way that he moves. And just like the Rook, he can go 1 or he can go all the way. It's the player's choice, okay?
The Bishop moves diagonally, forward and backwards, a number of squares. One bishop moves on black, the other on white. One bishop captures on white, one bishop captures on black. One bishop captures on white, one bishop captures on black. 1 king, 1 queen, 2 bishops, 2 rooks, 2 knights, 2 players, 8 pawns, 1 board.
Each one, teach one. Mother and father and daughter and son. We gonna learn and plus have fun. Yes indeed, the time has come. Reach out to your neighbor, do something nice, return the favor. It's all good, we all get along. Clap your hands and sing along to the song. Young people, you ain't gotta do wrong. We can all do right, come on.